Good morning. You're here live with CMajor here on CMajor before the show. It is very early here on this Saturday morning. It's 6 o'clock in the morning, and we are up and ready to talk with you about coffee culture and music. We are continuing our series. It's a brief series, it's a short series, but we wanted to talk with you about some of the music that's going on in Harlem that you might come across if you visit various places like I've done. And if you have students if you are a teacher and you have students that love some of the music that they've heard when they visited various venues in Harlem and they are inspired by the music. So let's just take a walk and see where we go this morning. Thank you for being here. With CMajor on CMajor before the show, and what we're going to do this morning is just talk from our hearts and just let you know what's on our minds, and to also share with you a little bit about what's going to be taking place this evening as well. So let's put on your walking shoes, let's put on your listening ears, and let's put on your seeing eyes, and we're going to start with one of my favorite areas to visit, and it's right around City College. So I'm going to have my computer with me as well. So you'll hear me doing some clicking on the computer keyboard because I want to make sure that I am staying on point. Now, before I start to do an actual search, let me just remind you that we did have a coffee culture and music episode last week. It was called Latte Inspired Music Making. And I just want to know one thing. Did you do your homework? Did you find out about those places that we talked about all over New York City where you could go to be inspired by the music that you hear as you are drinking your favorite latte or something else? And by the way, do you have your coffee in hand this morning? We encourage you to have your favorite coffee in hand when you're listening to this episode. And I hope you're having a nice weekend. Now, I'm going to step out of my page here and go to City College. And the reason why I want to go over there because there's an area right around City College just known as the Sugar Hill area. And I was very fortunate to have some piano students that I taught over there. They were wonderful and very talented. But you know how sometimes it takes a little time to get into New York and get parked and all of that. Sometimes I would get into the city a little early and I would need to park, and then of course there's some time available for me to walk around, and that's what I did. And I found this really wonderful coffee shop. So if I go to ccny.cuny.edu, of course you can see all of the places that you can tap into in the City College of New York community. But we're talking about somewhere between Amsterdam and Convent Avenue. That's what I'm talking about. So I'm going to be talking about that area first today. And first thing I want to do is see about the coffee shops around that area. See coffee shops. Near CUNY. Because that was really on my mind today. There was also a very nice music venue as well, where people were gigging and so forth. Now, of course, there are many parts to CUNY. So there's the Graduate Center, there are other places, but when I type that in the description, coffee shops near CUNY, what comes up, something called Stumptown Coffee Roasters, but that's in the lower area of the city, not the area I'm trying to find. Okay, let me click on more places and see what comes up. I'm looking for one specific place that I visited, and I don't recall the name of it. Let me see. So just bear with me because you are taking a walk with me. So I'm taking my time here this morning on a Saturday morning. It's really chilly outside, so stay warm if you can. Let's see. So I'm going to say coffee shops near 137. Let's see what comes up. Okay, here we are. We're getting somewhere now. So I don't really recall, again, the name of it, but write some of this stuff down. So I'm seeing something called Coffee Project New York. That's a coffee shop. Hungry Ghost Coffee. There's Manhattanville Coffee. So Manhattanville has definitely developed a lot in the past couple of years with Columbia University and their development project. Shut Eye Coffee. There's ACP Coffee. There's Cafe One. There's Double Dutch Espresso. And then in a minute we're going to go over to Lennox, but there's a place called Lennox Coffee Roaster as well. There's a place called the Monkey Cup. Harlem Blues Cafe, of course. Sugar Hill Cafe. Maybe that's the one that I visited. Let me click on that one. But that's closer to 145th Street, over by Convent Avenue Church. So let me click on that one because I'm not sure if that's the one I visited. But there are some very charming little cafes around, and they have the whole setup just like you would go to any other private coffee shop or cafe, where they have trained baristas, they take classes, and they know how to serve the customers and keep them happy. Okay, so I'm on this page now, and it just says Sugar Hill Cafe. That might have been the one that I went to. But it's at 410 West 145th Street in New York, and that's definitely over close by. Well, it's not far from City College, but it looks like it's closer to Convent Avenue Baptist Church, which I had a chance to visit as well. Now, I'm not sure if Convent Avenue Baptist Church has a cafe inside, but I know they have lots of music because I have musician friends that have played there for services and so forth. So we just see a very delightful picture if you go there. Okay. So there you have it. You have one place that you can tap into. And again, it's a homework assignment. What we're looking to see is if you go to these cafes, these small little quaint places where coffee is being served and there's a small little culture there, what type of music is going on and what music might you be inspired by. And I'm going to go into some of the artists that my students have named, just to kind of get your mind going a little bit. Okay, so let me move away from there. Let me go to, since it's on my mind now and I saw it listed, let me go to Manhattanville Coffee and see what's going on with that. Okay, so if I click on that, it says Harlem Coffee Shop in the description. Ooh, look at that picture. It's like coffee cups on the cover. Good coffee, good times. I like the way it's looking. big city coffee, small town service located in West Harlem. And they also have, of course, a location in Crown Heights in Brooklyn. So there's just a description there. And if you know anything about Crown Heights, you know Medgar Evers College is close by. So we will take a further look here at the menu. Okay, and I like this. So right up top, everything is pretty much an ABC order, but you can get an Americano. If you know anything about Americano, it's just basically espresso shots with water. You can get a cafe au lait, which is basically a latte. You can get a cappuccino, a cortado, drip coffee, of course, espresso, a latte, and macchiato. I guess, to be honest, the cafe au lait may not have espresso shots in it, so it's not a latte. It's just coffee with milk, so it's more like a misto, if you want to call it that, and then a macchiato, of course. So, like I said, I'm definitely into coffee culture. I love learning about the different coffees, and I love hearing the music that goes along with the drinking of the coffee. And I have to admit, I did visit a coffee shop this week, and it was a little sad because there were all of these customers buying all of this coffee and paying all of this money for that shared experience, but there was no music playing. So who knows the reason for that? But at this coffee shop, you can also get teas, you can get pastries, you can get food. So we're going to leave ManhattanvilleCoffee.com, and then we're going to move over to, let's go over to Lenox. Now, I was really sad when the Lenox Lounge closed. Weren't you sad? Maybe they'll bring it back again one day. But, there's a really great place. We have to go to Make My Cake, because I've had the coffee over there. It is delicious. And it has such a cute logo. I just love seeing the pictures on the walls when I go there. Okay, so MakeMyCake.com, Harlem, New York. And so right away, the thing that pops out at you is the logo. So it's the lady, that's positioned by the cake, and then you see the words Make My Cake. But they have the most delicious pastries. I won't even start talking about all of the deliciousness that goes on there. But to be honest, I don't really recall all of the music that I've heard there, but I know there's music there. So it's been a while, but I had some students in that area over by Lenox Avenue. And then, of course, if we go over by Make My Cake, we definitely have to stop by Amy Ruth's. So that's going to be next, because that's nearby. And then, of course, we have to go to Sweetbird. So many places to get to. Let me just click on the menu here. So if you go to MakeMyCake.com, you're going to see some wonderful pictures of croissants and cake, because it really is all about cake, but the coffee is really, really good too. Okay, so it's possible to experience some of the coffee culture if you go to Make My Cake. Just find a seat. There's celebrities coming through. I ran into one of these famous hosts of one of these entertainment shows there. He was there with his daughter. Just going to get coffee and cake like the rest of us. So it's an exciting place to be. Now let's go over to Amy Ruth's. Now Amy Ruth's, if you go to Amy Ruth's on a Sunday, oh my goodness, like a Sunday afternoon, there's a line out the door, like around the corner, even when it's cold. Okay, so let's go over to Amy Ruth's in Harlem. And of course, they're known for chicken and waffles. By the way, that reminds me, I heard that a very big chain is going to be serving chicken and waffles. That's going to be really interesting. Okay, now let's see if they say anything about coffee. So if you go to amyruths.com, what I love about Amy Ruth's, all the beautiful murals that you see on the wall. the painting is just very intriguing. So if you dine in, and of course you're on the website and you're saying soul food because it really is about soul food, but you can get some really good coffee there too. And the breakfast, oh my gosh. Definitely go for the breakfast. My mouth is watering just thinking about it. So what I see mostly listed on the breakfast menu are breakfast items. And then I think coffee is just probably one of those things that you can just get on the side, but it feels like it's a bottomless pot of coffee that you can get, or at least a refill. They're very generous over there. So it just says iced coffee, hot tea. But if you happen to go over to Amy Ruth's, just pay attention next time to some of the music that you're hearing. Now, the famous thing about Amy Ruth's is that they will list a lot of the celebrities that have been there by naming them along with an entree. So that's exciting to see. Okay, let's bounce out of here. Let's go over to Street Bird. Now I love Street Bird because it feels like a spinoff of Red Rooster, which we're going to go over to next. And then, of course, we'll stop by Sylvias. So the website for Street Bird is streetbirdexpress.com. But that's a different location. So there's been so much development with this. I think you have to go to Marcus Samuelsson group. Let's just see here. Yes, there we go. So it's the one over on Frederick Douglass Boulevard. And that place is jumping. Let me tell you, if you go over there, it's so exciting. You see pictures of everybody. And it's very, very exciting to see. So it looks like Street Bird has opened up a new location. But it still lists the one over on Frederick Douglass Boulevard. I'm just trying to get to the website. But what I love is... Now let me just see, now I'm seeing something about saying that it was closed. Hopefully that's not the case. Well, hopefully it's still open. The one at 2149 Frederick Douglass Boulevard. It's been a while since I've been over there. But if you can make your way over there, they really have really great dishes there. And lots of great recommendations. So maybe they've decided to move to a new location. But the decor was what really stood out. And also it was a really great place to get whatever you wanted, from coffee to everything else. And the music is really, really good. Okay, so now let's go over to Red Rooster, because I have friends that perform over there. Okay, so here we are on the Red Rooster Harlem.com website. You can make a reservation, you can view the menus. Okay, and then right up front, of course, live music is listed. So I'm going to click on that in a minute. I just want to take a look at this lunch menu. Appetizers, entrees, snacks, veggies and stuff. Prefix menu, dessert of the day. And they have a head chef that's listed as well. Let's see. Now, let me click on live music. So we can't really say for sure that the coffee culture is a priority in any of the places that I mentioned, but at the same time, you have an opportunity to experience drinking coffee And it can be as you're surrounded by live music or recorded music. Okay, so it looks like they've really... Oh, there we go. I see some of my friends listed. Okay, so if you have a chance to, go to redroosterharlem.com and then definitely check out the live music, because they have music going on upstairs and downstairs. And so you can't go there without being influenced by some of the jazz, the R&B, the neo soul, the live hip-hop, the reggae, the gospel, the blues, the Latin that goes on there. So definitely check it out. Lots of music over there. And I know the coffee is really, really good over there as well. They have DJs as well. So who knows, you may have more of a dance experience over at Red Rooster Harlem. Okay, now I'm going to step out of here and I'm going to go over to Sylvias. How many of you have been to Sylvias? It's a really great place to go. Very historic. So Sylvias Harlem Restaurant, of course she's known as the Queen of Soul Food. And then I just want to tap on this menu and see what's going on there. So if you go to sylviasrestaurant.com, you'll see menus. You'll see Gospel Sunday. You'll see a brunch menu. There's so many things to get into. My favorite thing about Sylvias, the breakfast. You can go over there and get 2 eggs in a style. You can get grits. And I just love the environment there. And if I recall correctly, a lot of the music that's played will be soul music. So I recall hearing a lot of Aretha Franklin when I was at Sylvias. And it didn't matter if I was there for breakfast or for lunch or for dinner. But it's been a while. So let's see here. Under beverages, you can get coffee or tea. And the price is around $3 for that. But I bet you, if you ask for special coffee and you treat it like a place where you want to experience more of a coffee culture, I believe you can have that there too. I think anything is possible. So that's pretty much my short walk through Harlem. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much. Yes, and so let me just tell you some of the music that you might experience if you are walking through Harlem, as some of my students have experienced, and we've shared our conversations about the music. Now, this person I recently read on the internet, there was a teacher that was discussing the philosophy of this person and their ideas about piano lessons, because that's still an ongoing conversation. So let's say you do happen to visit some of these cafes and you're into coffee culture and music and some of these restaurants, and you're hearing music and you say to yourself, I really want to learn to play that particular song on the piano. What if you say that to yourself? Then what do you do next? Do you go out and get a piano teacher? Because I think the overall question that we are really trying to pose, I won't even say answer, on this podcast is, what part of music is self-teaching? A large part of CMajor before the show is talking to recreational music makers, encouraging you to make the best music that you can make, and also keeping an open dialogue about what inspires you to make music in the first place. When I run into students that say that to me, I really want to learn to play the piano, there's so much anxiety around that. And I'm just thinking, what have they heard that inspired them to want to play the piano so badly and so quickly? Because all of my friends that took piano lessons with me, we didn't really grow up listening to a lot of the same music. And so playing the piano was just something that you did as a practice. It's something that you did in the community. It's just something that you learn to do and try to learn to do well. It wasn't that you listened to a radio program and decided that you wanted to learn to play the piano based on the music that you heard. You liked the music that you heard, but it didn't make you want to play the piano necessarily. So it's still a curiosity to me. But there's this overarching question on the internet, if you do a search there, about the whole idea of teaching yourself to play versus hiring a teacher. And I believe Bill Evans had something to say about that. So even if you want to Google search Bill Evans, Bill Evans began as a sideman in the Miles Davis Quintet, going on to become one of the most important jazz keyboard players. His original approach to chord voicings had an important impact on the playing of Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea, and Keith Jarrett. The Bill Evans sound is created by using chords in the left hand that often do not have the root of the chord on the bottom. For example, step 1 of a scale that is related to the chord, as well as voicing chords with tone clusters. So there are some examples of his music that you can learn, and then as you learn the piece, you experiment with chord voicings, and you can also apply some of this chord voicing technique to other tunes from fake books. So we didn't really go into voicings here on this podcast. That's something I think I'm going to stay away from until I can learn more about it myself. I mean, I'm not a jazz player. I'm classically trained. I've been pretty much just staying on that path. But as I delve into jazz a little bit more and really start to pay attention to the voicings that I use myself and put a little bit more thought into it, stepping away from a score, I think I'll be able to say more about that. So it's a journey for me too, to help you as you are on the same journey, and I hope we can have a friendly forum with that. Now, fake books, let me say something about that. I do have a student that's learning for the first time how to use lead sheets. So he's really pretty good at it, and he's very young. Let me just say it that way. But fake book, when I grew up, I thought a fake book meant fake music. I don't know. But now I understand what a fake book can really be used for. So basically learning how to play those chords in the left hand and then playing your melody in the right hand if you choose to do it that way, if you choose to use it that way, or just following the chord structure, period. Now, we mentioned Chick Corea. I believe he celebrated like a 75th birthday or something like that a couple of years ago. But he's really wonderful to hear. I was fortunate to hear him at the Blue Note. And, of course, it was just wonderful. By the 1970s, Chick Corea was one of the leaders of fusion, a combination of progressive jazz and rock, and often played electronic keyboards, synthesizers, and computers. His music often contains a Latin rhythm feel, shifting meters, chords built in fourths, and tone clusters. So it's really, really exciting to see him go to work on the piano, so to speak. And, of course, he was playing on a real grand piano. And so I think I heard him tell a story that he was admitted to Columbia University, and then he didn't stay because he felt that he could do more on his own. So that's a really good, really good prime example of self-teaching and how far it can take you. He's Chick Corea, Mr. Chick Corea. So just imagine that you're able to find the music that you want, make the best music that you can, not follow any strict rules for music making, and really make a career out of it. I think it's possible to do that. It's certainly not the path for everyone, but I believe he believed that he should make the best music that he can make, and for him it was taking that route. Now, I have students that are really, really excited about the music of Mary Lou Williams and Billie Holiday, and they told me so. They even have it on their iPhones. They have it pulled up on their YouTube accounts. That's what they listen to throughout the day, and they're very excited about its music. Mary Lou Williams was an extraordinary jazz pianist, composer, and band leader. Her playing represents every period of jazz, including ragtime, boogie, swing, bebop, and the rest. She really had this special way of mixing boogie left-hand patterns with blues riffs in the right hand. So we know that she was able to read music because she was able to put together charts, or at least she was able to read charts, let's say it that way. But she was not only a pianist, she was a composer, she was an arranger, she was a child prodigy who became a seasoned jazz professional and very, very accomplished with big band arranging, writing charts. I mean, she worked with Duke Ellington, Dizzy Gillespie, so many others that you can list. But as you are visiting some of these coffee shops, you may hear some of her music as well. We're going to talk about Billie Holiday in a moment because that's one of my students' favorite artists of all time. But we're going to mention Errol Garner because when I was visiting Harlem, I was visiting some friends over at Canaan Baptist Church, and they were talking a lot about Errol Garner, and I think they did a presentation either at the church or somewhere nearby the church. It could have been at the Studio Museum that I heard this. I'll check into that and see where that presentation was, or it could have been at one of the, I think it was, it was at the Schomburg Research Center. That's where it was. We're talking about the music of Errol Garner. But Errol Garner is remembered as an outstanding solo player who created a distinctive style by playing repetitive strummed chords in the left hand, similar to those that you see in other music, but he made it his own. So he played chords right on the beat, right after the beat. I mean, very exciting player. So if you talk about Errol Garner, of course, you have to talk about other players as well, but he's one of the bigger names that you will remember. Errol is spelled, if you want to look it up, E-R-R-O-L, last name Garner. Now, I'm just paging through one of my textbooks that I use with my students, and I'm glancing at the Dave Brubeck Quartet. So remember that song I was saying that was very famous, that was written in 5/4? Yeah, he's responsible for that song. Okay, skipping over some of the others. So the homework assignment continues. I really want to know what you're listening to and what you're finding along the way. And share that with us as part of our coffee culture, because I think not next week, for sure. We're closing out our coffee culture and music series. It really was just a 2-episode series, but we may bring it back in the form of actually brewing and steaming coffee over the podcast, which can be really exciting. So as I'm making coffee, I'm talking to you, and we'll continue our in-detail conversation because I want to start up the poll as well. So I'm going to post a poll as well on my social media. If you happen to be following our social media, you can get at me, as they say, over at Twitter at CMajor Porter 1. It's very small over there. I have just a few followers. I'm following just a few people. I have plans to grow it, but right now we're just being very organic and building it one tweet at a time, basically rebuilding it one tweet at a time. Facebook, also very small over there. I think I have 1 or 2 likes it seems like social media has pared down overall. It just really pared down because we have to be safe. You don't want any bots and trolls and things following you around the internet. You have to be safe, know where the gates are and stuff like that. But Facebook, if you go over to Facebook, you'll see CMajor before the show there. It is a public page, and a few people have been taking a peek at it. I see you. Thank you for visiting. I really appreciate it. Of course, you can like us or follow us over here at Spreaker.com. And if you care to, go over to where the homework is at cmajorsclassroom.wordpress.com. We always have something posted over there. Also, just a heads up, I know that some of you are doing your Christmas shopping early for sheet music, so I will be posting some links for you to use over there as well, because we want you to have in hand some of this music, some of this great music that you're excited about, and be able to at least go over the score. Now, while it's on my mind, I also have a student friend, let's say it like that, a student friend that is very excited about sheet music and has recently declared himself as a person that likes to learn to play the piano by ear. Really doesn't want to read music. It's just too much. It's just too overwhelming. But he will use the sheet music for reference. So again, I think you can make the best music that you can make. Decide when it's important for you to have a teacher. Use us. Use us for your advantage on how you want to do it, because not everybody's going to walk that straight line of taking piano lessons for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years and really being able to come out of that as accomplished as you really want to be. Because along the way, there will be many musical distractions. Let me just say it like that. Now, Billie Holiday was affectionately called Lady Day. She was one of the great jazz ballad singers, and she combined jazz phrasing, you name it. I'm going to say a little bit more about her. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to turn off the music, and I'm going to be back in a moment. Thank you for listening. Okay, and I am back. And we are live right here on CMajor before the show. You're here with CMajor Porter. And we left off on talking about Lady Day. So, there's a wonderful picture here. And there's a credit to the photographer. It's from some archive photos. And it just says here, Billie Holiday, affectionately called Lady Day, was one of the great jazz ballad singers. Billie combined the jazz phrasing of trumpeter Louis Armstrong and the intimate style or the intimate sound of saxophonist Lester Young to create a uniquely sensitive style. And so, if you look at some of the books that are available or the methodologies or the methods that are out there to teach you to play jazz and blues, of course you'll come across some of the songs that will delve into the way that she used to do it. But don't limit yourself to just what's presented in the textbooks. Really challenge yourself to go outside of the textbook. The textbooks are just there as a guide, and then that's probably the point where you need a teacher. So if you are teaching yourself and then you come across a point where you have a question, then visit a music professional who will probably explain it to you in a way that you can understand it better. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't work to talk with someone about what you're aiming to do. Because again, the purpose of music making to me seems to have changed. Now, I have students that really just want to learn to play a song well enough so they can put it on their social media, so they can Snapchat it or Facebook it or tweet it and then take it down. So it's more of a different effort. Let me just say that, playing the piano. And again, playing the piano is an 18th century idea that if you want to do it the way that it was intended, then you will need classical lessons if you want to play the way that it was intended. If you don't have to do that. I just recall taking a class called 20th Century Harmony, and it seems that everything about that class was to go against anything that was traditional about playing the piano. In fact, we weren't even encouraged to use the keys. We were encouraged to use every other part of the piano but the keys. So if it involved putting screws and other instruments that could harm the inside of a piano, but to change the tone color, the timbre, Timbre, pronounced timbre, of the piano, just so you can say, I created something using this type of thought and this type of thought process. And of course, you can start talking about sound design and those things. So it was just a different approach. I mean, that in addition to a class on 20th Century Harmony, just started to really move away from piano techniques so much that were used in the 18th century. The idea was to break the rules. So it really depends on what you want to do. And when it comes to making the best music that you can make and how you want to express that. Some of my friends think that sticking with tonal music is boring. Why should I stick with just knowing something's going to end with a plagal cadence? Why should I do that every single time? I want to do something different than that. I want to make up compositions that will have you sitting in front of a piano and then standing up only to play one note and then sitting back down again. Of course, you can do that. You can do whatever you want. I've seen a lot, especially on the internet, of the creative ideas that are out there. It shows you as being more of a thinker, as being more of that community that goes against the grain of playing Mozart, Bach, all of the things that you hear on New York's classical station. So just be open-minded enough to know what you're getting into when you decide you want to take piano lessons, and be very clear about your goals. And if you just stick to what you really have in your mind, I think you'll be okay. But if you're trying to have a career as a pianist, that is a different issue. Before I forget, I do want to invite you to join us over at the CMajor radio show a little bit later this evening. If you saw any of our listings over at Blog Talk Radio, you know that I have not posted any description of what today's show will be. In fact, I haven't even listed a time of the show. It's because we may be doing something a little bit different today. So I wanted to be sure first of the time I wanted to do the live broadcast, because it will be live, and I wanted to also be sure of the topic. So what we attempted to do last week was to have a first piano lesson on the air. I thought it was quite boring, and I didn't really like what I said. And I don't want to be there to bore you. It's just a waste of airtime to be boring on the radio, on a podcast. But at the same time, what I said was really, really important. So I'm going to go back to that. So boring as it may be, and I did see that word on the internet this week as well. They said, oh, if you thought piano lessons were boring, then don't do this, do that. You know, somebody always has a creative solution for where you should go next if you just can't stand doing what's considered quote-unquote boring. So before I steer you away from the CMajor radio show, I really do want you to come and listen to what we're saying over there, because it's still important. Boring or not, it's still important. It's important to know how to find middle C, I think. I think it is. Unless you just want to pay somebody to help you find middle C. Okay, I'm going to mention one more jazz person from our jazz history book here. Because I think it's important, if you do happen to take a brief walk through Harlem yourself, outside of this podcast, just really pay attention to some of the music that you may come across. And I'm going to list those places that I talked about in today's podcast as well. It's important. So one more artist I want to mention that you may run across. And to be honest, you don't have to go to Harlem just to hear all the music that you may want to hear when it comes to blues and jazz. Now we have an organization that's devoted to that. That's in the Columbus Circle area of New York. You can just go there. Okay. Just flipping through my book here. I thought there was one more person that I wanted to mention. I think it was more in the descriptions of the history of blues and jazz. I'll just talk a little bit about this, the Latin influence. So I think you will, if you go to certain restaurants, certain cafes, you will start to hear some of the Latin influence as well. So the Latin influence certainly as what we call rhythmic energy, the rhythms of Latin America, and the rhythms of Latin American dances and songs have been an expanding part of many blues and jazz musicians' performances and compositions. I was thinking how exciting it would be to play in a Latin band, as a pianist. Early blues and jazz performers added rhythmic energy and intensity by incorporating and syncopated Latin rhythms that can be found as early as in the playing of Jelly Roll Morton and later in the work of Duke Ellington. Dizzy Gillespie and Stan Kenton used Afro-Cuban rhythms in their music with Stan Getz, Miles Davis, and Chick Corea, along with fusion groups such as Weather Report and Spyro Gyra, using flamenco, bossa nova, and reggae rhythms in their performances. And then it goes on to talk about a Latin Hall of Fame. So we had already mentioned Dizzy Gillespie. I'm not sure if we had mentioned Stan Getz. But again, you may hear a lot of this music, and just be open. Just be open-minded. Put on your listening ears. Put on your seeing eyes, and put on your thinking caps as you're out there experiencing your coffee and music. So thank you so much for being a part of today's series. And let me just go over here for a moment to our classroom minute. Now, if you did hear during the week that I posted something called Classroom Minute. It was our first time to post something like this. And what I was aiming to do was just expound upon the concept of finding your notes on a piano, because that's what we're doing over at the CMajor radio show. I'm presenting to you several ways, several methods, several ways of going about it, because over the years you've had pedagogues that thought that piano pedagogy should involve a multi-key approach, meaning you learn to play basically in all 12 keys up front. You don't have to wait. Again, there's that anxiety that says, why should I wait for anything? I want to get to a certain point in my music making very fast. It's important. And then you have the middle C approach. So again, you see this debate on the internet if you search and you just look for the discussion. It's there. It talks about how to learn to play the piano using the middle C approach. Should you focus more on rote learning as you start out to play the piano, or should you learn to try to learn to play in all 12 keys up front? It really depends on you. I mean, I get this question a lot from new players, new students that come to me. They're pretty much a huge question mark themselves because they're confused. They've been told different things. But I think you can really start to take control of your own learning if you just know the different methods that are out there and choose the one that you think will work best for you. If you are a more of it, I would just say it this way, and I've heard the professor say this himself, that something like this, that if you are more of a fast learner, an accelerated learner, then go ahead with the multi-key approach. That means you'll be able to take it. You're not afraid of moving around and doing different things with your music making. You're open to that. Right away, you'll start to learn to play one song in 12 keys, so you're comfortable. And then as time goes on, then you, of course, learn proper technique, proper everything else that goes along with that. So if you think that's the type of challenge you want, then go for that type of challenge. The big thing I'm finding now is that a lot of students don't want to spend the time to become better. They think that it's going to happen overnight. There's something to be said for that too, because I do have musician friends who just don't practice. They just know exactly what to do. They hop up on stage, they do their performance, they come off at night, they do it all over again. They may have very few minutes that they spend practicing at all, but they know what they're doing when they get up there on stage. That's more when you get to that professional level and you really understand what your music making is all about. But while you're trying to get there, I would say the best way to improve is to start spending some time with it. Otherwise, how can you expect to be better? And just take it at your own pace. I had a student that said one time, "Why am I so bad at piano?" But then when I started to find out what his priorities were, and I never used that word to describe his playing. I never said you're a bad student. His family members were saying some of those things to him, unfortunately, that he was a bad player, that he was not good. And I'm sure some of that was a little damaging to him. But I will say this, at the same time, having that guidance that says, spend some time with the music. spend more time than you would doing something else. So it's just like anything else. You want to increase your time of doing something and then decrease your time of doing something else, I think, to see the progress that you want to see. I hope that makes sense. Now, the middle C approach, that's what we're starting tonight again, all over again. So if you listen to the CMajor radio show, we're going to talk about the middle C approach. We're also going to talk a little bit more about the rote learning that you can do. There's actually a book that's devoted to teaching students how to play the piano outside of traditional notation. And guess where they start? They start on the black keys. And it's because they know that they can use what can also be called a pentatonic approach. So you have a choice, a group of 2 black keys or a group of 3 black keys. 3 plus 2 is 5. If you're just using 5 keys to learn to play songs, original songs, you can play many songs. And there are actually some very famous songs that use only the pentatonic scale. So C is over there because we do like to talk a little bit more in depth, and then we're going to be using C major before the show as a prep for the C major radio show. So starting next week, you're going to hear me go in a little bit more in depth over here about what's coming up over there, if that makes sense, because I want to talk about all the boring stuff over here first, if that makes sense. But of course, it won't be boring because we'll make it exciting for you. But the reason I want to do that is because I think that a lot of my listeners appreciate music over here at C Major before the show. And then over the C Major radio show, I believe a lot of my listeners they're already applying some of the music that I'm talking about. And it never gets old. It doesn't matter how long you've been taking piano lessons. It never gets old to talk about middle C. At least it doesn't for me. I'm just excited when I have that first student who's learning middle C for the first time, and then the 100th student. I'm still just excited about them to see their faces light up when they're able to find where they would like to go on the piano. So it's been a great pleasure to be with you all today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you. And thank you so much for being with us right here on C Major before the show. I am CMajor Porter. I hope you'll join me next week. I'm going to say something during the week. I will. So look out for that. It looks like now that if you follow the podcast, there's the likelihood that I'll say something to promote an upcoming show, or at least give like a minute lesson just to keep you listening. So we want you here. We like having you here with us. And we want you to find a way to put some music into your day and have a great time. Take some time to make music. And we'll see you next time right here on C Major before the show. Take care.